welcome to the NK News podcast. I'm your host, Jacco Zwetsloot, and today it is Wednesday, the 4th of May, 2022, and I'm joined here via Zoom by visual artist and filmmaker Che OneJoon. We'll be talking about his recently released book and 10-year-long project involving North Korean art and statues in Africa and African artworks in North Korea. Before we get started, I'd like to remind all of you listening, please to leave a review about this podcast wherever you can, a review and a rating. And you might be wondering why I always ask you to do this, and that's so that people can discover our podcast more easily. Spotify allows ratings, but not reviews, and Apple Podcasts allows both. And nowadays, our podcasts are also available on YouTube, so you can leave a rating, a comment, and share that as well. Secondly, check out nknews.org and consider buying a subscription. That helps to fund the excellent journalism that my colleagues put out every day. And third, don't forget to follow nknews.org on Twitter or me at Jacco Z. And also for podcast suggestions and feedback, you can tweet at us or email us at podcast@nknews.org. Okay, so to introduce my guest today, Che OneJoon is a visual artist and filmmaker. One of his first projects involved photographing Seoul's red light districts. Now, about a decade ago, Che started work on a documentary project about the monuments and statues made by North Korea for many sub-Saharan African nations. His project sought to create photographs, film, and installation works that touched on Afro-Asian culture and identity. He has recently published the book, International Friendship, The Gifts from Africa, released by German publisher Kera. And you can find his website at cheonejoon.com. That's cheonejoon.com. We'll also provide a link in the show notes. Welcome on the show, OneJoon.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me.
I'm very glad that you can be on. Now, it's interesting to begin with this project. I guess I should start with a little explanation. So you're a South Korean, so it's not easy for you to visit North Korea. And so you ended up going all the way to Africa to look at things that North Koreans designed and made in African countries. And then you came back to South Korea to look at things that African countries had given to the leaders of North Korea. And along the way, you took photographs, you made films, you carried out interviews, and you even recreated objects using a 3D printer. What a fascinating project. OneJoon, how do you look at this project? Is it art? Is it history? Is it documentary making? Is it exhibition curation? What exactly is it?
I want to call my project a multimedia documentary project.
Yeah, that sounds fair. Good. Multimedia documentary.
Yeah, which consists of documentary film and TV documentary film, which means film for cinema and TV documentary.
Yeah.
And piece for museum and biennale.
Oh, yes.
And when I started this project, I was thinking about 3-channel documentary film. 3-channel means 3-screen documentary.
At the same time.
Yeah. It is a kind of a experimental form of documentary, but I didn't want to present this film in the classical way.
Let's go back to the very beginning. How and when did the project start for you? Because you've been working on it for a long time.
Yeah. When African Renaissance Monument inaugurated in 2012.
Right. That's in Senegal, right? In the capital of Senegal.
Yeah, I saw the news and I was fascinated by how North Korea made this huge monument in Senegal. And I wanted to know why and how North Korean artists built this huge monument.
Right.
But it was a little difficult to find some news articles and information related to this subject. Then I moved to Paris in 2013.
Let me just interrupt and say, our people who are listening, if you Google African Renaissance Monument in Senegal, you can find some good photographs of this impressive statue that OneJoon is talking about. So that statue was unveiled 10 years ago this year in 2012 in Senegal. And so you saw the news about that, and that's where your interest began, I guess, in North Korean statues in Africa. And then tell us
Right.
about what happened when you moved to France.
Oh yeah. Before moving to Paris, I
Mhm.
wasn't. I was interested in Cold War issue
Mm.
of Korea Peninsula
Yeah.
and U.S. military station issue. But although I'm close to this kind of Cold War and borderline issue,
Hmm.
doesn't mean that I am close to North Korean art and culture or political information.
Yeah.
So when I moved to Paris, I started research on this subject. And for example, I was able to access North Korean website freely.
All right, because our listeners might not know that in South Korea, those websites are completely blocked. You cannot access any North Korean website because the South Korean government doesn't want you to see them.
Right, exactly. So yeah, I had no clue on this subject,
Mm.
and I got to know that North Korean leader, the first leader of North Korea, Kim Il Sung, fully supported the African leaders and economically and culturally.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I decided to start this project when I saw open call of Musée de Kavlangni,
Sorry, could you say that again?
the Kavlangni Museum. Sorry.
Ah,
Yeah, when I first saw the news, when I first grant program of Kavlangni Museum, I made a decision to apply for that, and luckily they selected my project.
mm.
Yeah, then I was able to start this project with the support of the museum.
Ah.
Yeah,
And
and
so with that grant, you were able to visit the African Renaissance Monument in Senegal. Is that correct?
yes, but not even economic financial support.
Ah,
They support. I mean, Africa was I didn't know much about Africa either.
yeah,
Psychologically, North Korea is far away from me, but
yeah,
Africa also very far away, very
right.
far from, yeah, my country, and yeah, physically and psychologically. So when I started this project, I needed kind of permission,
Hmm.
like a photography permission from each African countries. But
Mm.
I mean, it's really difficult to find where I ask and where how much the permission, and
Yeah,
all the process was mysterious. And I had the filmmaker's friend in Europe, in Korea, but they also didn't know much about that.
mm.
And then Musée de Kavlangni sent their letter to Heritage Department of Senegal and Congo, and many countries that I wanted to visit.
Yeah.
And then I started this project with the legal permission.
Ah, okay. So they helped you with the sort of the bureaucracy of contacting the different governments and things like
Right.
that. Yeah. And
Yes.
how many different objects, including statues, buildings, and memorials, how many North Korean objects exist in Africa?
I was trying to make this kind of list by myself, but
Hmm.
it's almost impossible because
Oh,
when it comes to Monster Art Studio,
yeah.
they built Monster Overseas Studio.
Right. The
Uh,
Mansudae Overseas Projects, I think it's
yeah,
known as.
Monster. Sorry, yeah, that's correct. Monster Overseas Project. They built many monuments and buildings in about 18 African countries.
Hmm.
But I knew that there were one more construction company called Baekdu.
Ah,
Yeah, Baekdu is more mysterious construction company runs by North Korean government. But Baekdu also built statues, monuments, and buildings in African, many, I mean, quite many African countries.
mm.
But Manstyle Art Studio was a symbolic art studio, symbolic group of artists.
Yeah.
Then back to construction company. So I focused on Manstyle Studio, then back to.
Okay. In how many countries did you say Mansudae Overseas Projects? Did you say 13 countries or
Sorry, about 18 countries
18 countries?
in Africa.
Yeah.
Yeah, but not included back to.
Right.
So yeah, so back to they 2 months they published their own catalog,
Yes.
and I was able to buy them in Manste Museum in Beijing.
Ah,
Yeah, and I didn't made a list because they just dealt with like their highlights.
right. So it's really difficult to make a complete list of every project that they have in Africa.
Yes, that's what I mean.
Would you say then, I mean, just as a sort of a rough guess, would you say that there are more than 50 different North Korean projects throughout Africa?
50?
Yeah, 50.
Oh, not really.
Okay.
Maybe I would say like about 25 countries.
Yep.
Yeah, but it's not the correct. Some many medias, quite many medias contacted me and about this kind of list, and but I had to give them an answer ambiguously
Yeah.
because it's still mysterious.
It's still a mystery, right? Now, these days, especially the company Monster Overseas Products is blocked by or is targeted by United Nations sanctions. But most of the sites that you visited were built before there were any sanctions on Monster, right?
Yes.
Mm.
Namibia had some issue with the UN sanction because North Korean Mansdai Overseas project started building work during the sanction.
Ah.
Yeah, just before the sanction.
Yeah.
It was headquarter building of the military defense.
Right.
In Namibia.
Yeah.
So Namibia had to broke the UN sanction, but ended up they also follow the UN sanction.
Ah. Okay, so we don't know exactly how many North Korean pieces of art there are in Africa, but how many were you able to visit?
Yes, I was able to visit 12 cities in 8 African countries in Africa. Yeah, 5 years. Yeah, 5 years, about 5 years.
And which which location did you visit the most?
I visited to Namibia and Zimbabwe and Senegal 3 times.
Right.
Yeah.
So as a South Korean and also as a South Korean artist, what kind of impressions did these monuments leave on you?
Yeah, when I started this project, I wanted to see North Korean art and culture from African land, but it's led to diplomatic relations between Korean Peninsula and Africa, and also deeply connected to kind of like a Korean War, because if Korean War didn't break out, there is no North Korean monument in Africa.
Yeah.
So I wanted to learn North Korean art from Africa, but it symbolized not even North Korean art. It symbolized history and like our current situation, and it symbolized many things. So from what I see, North Korean monument in Africa is like traces of our forgotten, like a hidden history.
You mean Korea's hidden history?
Yes, because I mean those monuments, those are not that well known until Senegal's African Renaissance inaugurated.
Yeah.
And after that, many medias has dealt with these issues, but they are just focusing on North Koreans, how much North Korean governments made foreign currency from African countries, but actually, yeah, before then, Kim Il-sung, the first leader of North Korea, built many buildings and monuments for free to make relationship, I mean, kind of friendship with the African leaders.
Right.
Yeah, but this kind of all these like a complicated stories to me like a abstraction.
Yeah.
Like an abstract history and the political situation faced our history.
Yeah, as you say, it's interesting because for the first few decades of North Korea's relationship with Africa, these monuments, these statues and buildings, they were gifts. They were free of charge to the African leaders. And you mentioned that this was for the purpose of strengthening the relationship between North Korea and various African countries and their leaders. But then later, sometime around maybe in the 1990s, or certainly by the year 2000, North Korea was doing these projects as a money-making enterprise, as a business.
Yeah, I interviewed many people, and North Korean defector who is former diplomat of DR Congo.
Is that Go Yong-hwan?
Yes, Go Yong-hwan told me when North Korean economy was crisis, Kim Jong-il changed their policy toward the African countries. So
Right.
they wanted to export their skill to African countries. So it was an important, very important moment, because before then, the North Korean North Korea supported Africa, but after their economic crisis, they wanted to receive support from African countries.
Right, yeah. Now, you also spoke to local people in the African countries that you visit, which is, of course, very valuable, because it's important to hear the African voices in this project too.
Right.
And you spoke to journalists, museum directors, architects, and just other local photographers and local people there. Tell us about what they said about the North Korean monuments in their countries, in their cities. How do they feel about it?
Yeah, each countries have different history with North Korean government and leaders. So it's difficult to generalize, but the most memorable interview was when I went to Madagascar. People saw I'm from North Korea, and I was trying to convince them I'm from South Korea, but they saw North Korea, South Korea is like a part of like a south of North Korea. Yeah, so they didn't even know my country has been divided into two.
Yes.
So they thought I'm from North Korea to repair their water pump.
Oh.
Yeah, because North Koreans built their like water pump and taught them agriculture skill.
Yep.
Yeah, their town was very wealthy, but now the former city mayor sold their water pump, and their agriculture business has gone. So they were waiting for a new water pump, and they thought I'm from North Korea to fix that.
Yeah.
So it was very weird experience.
So they must have been very disappointed when you said, no, I just came here to do some interviews about North Korean art.
Right.
Yeah.
But they kept asking me,
when can you fix the pump?
Yes, when can I fix the water pump? Yeah.
Gee. Now, I understand, having seen some of your documentary footage, that there were mixed feelings about some of the North Korean artworks throughout Africa, particularly about the issue of whether the statues of humans, whether they look African or they look Korean. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Are you talking about the figure of the statue, right?
Yes, the people in the statue, the humans in the statue, whether they look African or Korean.
Yeah. Actually, I knew this kind of criticism, so I was expecting to see North Korean face with the African like body figure, but they doesn't look like North Korean. They doesn't look like Asians. They look like Africans, and they all beautiful.
Yeah.
And I was very impressed by a North Korean skill, and although they had some trouble with the locals, and for example Zimbabwe, North Korean sent military instructors, and they trained the 5th Brigade, where killed Bulawayo people during
the civil war in Zimbabwe.
Not civil war. They call it Kukurahundi. It's a bit complicated history, but anyways, Mugabe's special force trained by North Koreans, and they killed Bulawayo citizens from 1982, several years. And North Korean, when they heard the former president of Zimbabwe, Nkomo's statue was elected, their supporters and citizens highly criticized, like it was like a kind of demonstration. So government had to remove the statue.
Oh.
And yeah, and then when I had interviewed the son of Nkomo, who is a politician in the city, and he said it was yeah, they cannot accept North Korean statue at all. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but yeah, it was replaced replaced to a new statue, but it looks the same. Yeah.
It looks the same.
So,
Oh, gosh.
yeah. So there's no differences. People just have, it was like a kind of rumor. Yeah.
Yeah. And there was also, I remember one of the people you interviewed talked about or asked the question, why can't we have a statue designed by a local artist? Why must we have something designed by a North Korean artist or architect or designer?
Right. That's actually makes sense, because there are many good artists and sculptors in Africa.
Yeah.
But there's some reasons that North Korean occupied the statue business in Africa, because when it comes to bronze statue, North Korea has the special skill, which is to cast big bronze,
Oh, yeah.
bronze sculpture. So only North Korean can cast big bronze sculpture. But maybe now I mean, maybe it has changes. But when I visited to Senegal in 2013, his name is Atepa, who collaborate with the North Korean the Master Overseas Project. And he said only he was looking for other sculptors or companies, but only North Korean was able to make big bronze sculpture.
Oh, okay. So that's why they chose to work with Mansudae overseas projects.
Yeah. So not only cost-wise.
Yeah. Did you ever meet any North Koreans during your visits to the African monuments?
Well, yes. I came across North Koreans on the street. Not on the street, but near the construction site where they built.
So they were still working when you were there?
Yeah, they were fixing something, and they also made a new building in Namibia, and I went there, and I was trying to talk to them, but they just say they didn't say anything. They just smiled.
Right.
Yeah, but it was very weird smile.
You think maybe they were trained what to do if they see a South Korean?
Yes, but I also have we also have the same rule. If I meet North Korean abroad, I need to report to maybe police station. I don't know exactly. Anyway, so I have to send a report about meeting North Koreans.
Oh.
Yeah, and I'm sure North Korea has a more strict rule on that.
Yeah. Did you send a report?
Not really.
Yeah. And I think you visited a building in Namibia. Maybe it was an office building or a dormitory building, and North Koreans were not there anymore, but they had left some documents and papers and rubbish behind.
Right. Yeah, that was very they were very weird.
Yeah.
As I said, I had photography permission and filming permission. So
from the government of Namibia.
Yeah, and Namibia and each country that I visited.
Yeah.
Without those papers, I couldn't do anything.
Right.
Anyway, and I went there, and of course it wasn't open officially, but the guard opened the door for us, and we entered the building, and we filmed. Then we found like a blueprint and daily attendance notes.
Yes.
Yeah, in trash can, and I didn't understand why they throw them away.
Right.
Anyway, it was very meaningful archive when I had this exhibition. So if many people ask me how I get how I obtain this kind of rare
Right.
items, but yeah, it was just coincidence. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a remarkable discovery. And I understand that after you went there, that the Namibia-based journalist John Grobler went and he actually wrote some stories. Our listeners can find the stories by John Grobler. That's Grobler. You can find out the stories on nknews.org. A handful of 5 or 6 different stories analyzing those documents found in Namibia.
I met John 3 times, 2013 and 15. Yeah, he was very supportive. Yeah, he supported my project, and I really appreciate what has done. Yeah, for my project.
And then, as well as the North Korean monuments and buildings in Africa, you also included in your project gifts from Africa to North Korea, objects of art. How did you find out about these gifts?
Well, when I presented this project, I wanted to display this piece of art, like a North Korean, like a promotional loom, like a promotion loom. Yes, so in between like a library and promotion loom, that was a original concept in 2014. So I built archive vitrine and some bookshelves. Then I displayed the North Korean books and the document that I found in Namibia as well.
Yeah.
And then I found a very interesting book called International Friendship Catalog.
Yeah.
The Pyongyang Mountain in North Korean Information Center in Seochodong.
That's the at the Korean National Library in South Korea, in Seoul, in Seochodong. There is a one floor or half a floor which is all materials from North Korea.
Yeah, that's the North Korean catalog. I mean, the Hyungsan catalog. It contains all the objects from African countries and
well, every country, isn't it? Every country around the world. It's every tourist or many tourists who visit North Korea, they go to the mountains in the center of North Korea, Hyungsan, and they are taken to the International Friendship Exhibition, which is a gigantic building with tens of thousands of gifts received by Kim Il-sung. And next to it, there is another gigantic building with tens of thousands of gifts received by Kim Jong-il.
Right, yeah. But there was no Korean gift on the book. And they focused on African gifts,
right,
and gift from Eastern European countries, and including Romania and Hungary, and also of course Soviet and Communist Party in Japan. And I wanted to borrow this book, but the information center, they said the book has a kind of like classified level.
Yeah.
So
they're very strict at the North Korean materials room, aren't they? They're very strict. You cannot take any photographs or photocopies or scans or borrow the book.
Well, not all the book and newspapers.
Right, some of them.
Yeah, some of them. But the book that I wanted, the North Korean, the International Friendship book, has a very high level of this kind of like a classification. So
you know what's ironic, OneJoon? It's very funny when you visit the exhibition in North Korea, they also have a very high classification level because you are not allowed to take a camera into the exhibition. It's impossible to take any photograph inside the exhibition. So actually, North and South Korea have the same rule about the same International Friendship Exhibition.
Right, that's true. I didn't know that. So I decided to scan these images illegally. Secretly. I didn't want to say illegally, but that's the first time when I saw the book for the first time.
Yes,
I fascinated by how North Korean photograph those objects because
Hmm.
North Korean, we already familiar with North Korean design
Yes.
and film and their like a special aesthetic and very authentic.
Yep.
But I didn't see this kind of like a still photography.
Mm.
Yeah, so it's all taken in studio, and and I could see their like background color, and then the way of using lightings.
Mm.
So those are yeah, very unusual to me. So yeah, I just wanted to get the images for like references or archives, but ended up the image was a little distortion because the scanner was very small, which was portable scanner.
Right.
So
It's a hand scanner, not a flatbed scanner. So you have
yes,
to manually roll the hand scanner down the page along the photograph, didn't you?
yes, right.
Right.
So when I back my studio and I checked the image, and I was surprised because I didn't expect to see this kind of a distorted, but
Yeah.
yeah, but the meaning was kind of distorted
Right.
because I felt like this distorted images symbolized something weird, like a twisted original meaning of objects.
Yeah.
So I decided to use images as a photographic series,
Hmm.
and also I made the 3D printed sculpture using the images.
Right. You made a replica with a 3D printer of
Yes,
these objects, and as you said, because the images had been distorted, it's not a perfect replica, but it's still a kind of replica.
right. Yeah, it's kind of replica. So when
Yeah.
I presented this 3D printed sculptures
Yeah.
with the North Korean books and photographs, and North Korean artist, painter, North now he's a South Korean, Sun Mu.
Oh, Sonmu, yes.
Yeah, Sun Mu was one of the presenter of the show, and it was a big group show in National Contemporary Museum of South Korea.
Yep.
And then Samu told me he was a kind of shocked because he saw some artist or the National Contemporary Museum borrowed those objects from North Korea.
Yeah.
So I was surprised uh, because I didn't expect to hear this kind of yeah, feedback. And
Mm.
yeah, and I also made the display like a vitrine similar to original North Korean Hyungsan exhibition hall.
Right, because all the objects are behind glass. They're shown in gigantic display cases or vitrines, as
Right,
you call them in
right.
French. And the guides always like to tell us that there are so many objects that if you look at each object in the exhibition for 1 minute, you will be there for, I don't know, 126 years or something, some crazy number like that. So, there are
Yes.
literally tens of thousands of objects, and they never have enough time to see everything. So you just see a small selection. Actually, I should say that on YouTube, if you look on YouTube if you search for International Friendship Exhibition in English, or if you search for Gukje Chinson Cheollamgwan in Korean, you can find some official videos from North Korea which show these objects. But as I said, the tourists themselves are not allowed to take photos, but they do make some official videos which are available on YouTube.
Yeah.
Right. So you made these replicas. Are they still on display somewhere? Can people still go to see them now? Your
Oh,
items?
I don't have any exhibition schedule of the sculptures at the moment, but
Mm-hmm.
if I have a exhibition, I will share the information with you.
Right. So, but they are somewhere in storage still, I guess.
Yeah, astrology in
Yeah.
in Paju.
Right. So during your decade-long project, Did you ever have any visitors from the National Intelligence Service from South Korea?
Oh, that's very interesting question. Well, when I first presented this piece in Seoul Metropolitan Museum, the curator and I worried about not even a national security agent.
Mm-hmm.
We were worried about right-wing grandfathers, like
Ah,
old
yes.
terrorists. Yeah, because they were more, they are aggressive and they are more dangerous than
Mm.
national security agent. Yeah, but yeah, luckily we don't have any issue with the national agents and
Mm.
right wing. The Korean flag group, yeah, the
Yeah.
Taegoki,
The Teguki warriors.
yeah, Taegoki warriors,
Yeah.
exactly. Yes.
And
Yeah.
you never had any trouble from the North Korean materials library in Socho about scanning those photographs?
Well, I don't have any issue until today, but
That's
I don't
great.
know. Yeah.
Let's hope it stays that way. Um, this project that you worked on for so long, looking at North Korean gifts in Africa and African gifts in North Korea, has this taught you anything about relationships between Korea and Africa?
Well, after this project,
Hmm.
I was, I didn't know much about relations between Asian countries and African countries.
Yeah.
For example, non-aligned movement, and before then, there was a Afro-Asian conference in Indonesia,
Hmm.
and when Asian countries, I'm sure Sumatra, Sukarno, who is the founder of the conference, uh, started this conference. I think he imagined more like ideal relationship of the two continents to
Hmm.
against the Western powers. But now the non-aligned movement also, I mean, is still existing, but I don't think it's working. For example, when Russian attacked Ukraine, UN has announced yeah, and they have like official announcement, but the non-aligned movement too, they don't have any official announcement. So
Hmm.
yeah, this is just like a ideal like a imagination, like an ideal relationship, like a imagination. So
Yes.
but from this meaningful meeting conference, this kind of the Asian and African's relation has been changed to like a economical way and a political way. So I'm more focusing on those two continent relationship over North Korean and African relationship.
Hmm. Okay. So you're looking more broadly. What
Yes,
is there something we can learn from your project about power relationships between Kim Il Sung and African leaders?
I think Kim Il Sung now, okay, when it comes to construction business in Africa,
Yeah.
yeah, everybody said Chinese occupied those fields
Ah.
in African countries, but actually before Chinese started this kind of construction business,
Yes.
North Korea started this kind of business earlier than that, and this is a yeah very innovative mind, I think. But yeah, now North Korea, you know, they are kind of isolated countries in the
Yeah.
world, and Africa is is grows fast and economically, culturally, and Africans' power are bigger than before. But North Koreans are getting changed in a bad way, I think.
Mm.
Yeah, so I think Kim Il Sung also has a very ideal some like a he has this ideal picture on this relationship between two lands, two continents, like a Sukarno. But now those kind of history shows us the past is past, and then um, the son of Kim Il Sung, the grandson of Kim Il Sung
Yeah.
doesn't follow this kind of father's idea.
Right. Now, after 10 years of work on your project, you've published a book that's just come out. I mentioned at the start, International Friendship, The Gifts from Africa. And I'm looking at the cover of your book. What is the image on the front cover? Which statue is that?
Yeah, that was the new statue of the former president of Zimbabwe, Nkomo,
Mm-hmm.
in Bulawayo City.
Ah, in Bulawayo, right.
Yeah, yeah, and then there was a North Korean statue on same spot, and it has been removed by Bulawayo citizens.
Okay, so this is the statue that replaced the North Korean statue.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So I put backside image as the pedestal of North Korea made, like an empty pedestal.
Ah, okay. On
And
the
then,
back of the book.
yeah, back of the book, and
Okay.
the front image was a new statue built by Zimbabwean artist.
Right. Now, obviously, in a book, it's not possible to include the three-screen sort of tri-channel video documentary that you made, nor is it possible to include the 3D replicas of the artwork. So, what does your book show? What's in it?
I made the book before a long time. I made the book long time ago, but I didn't involve the design process at the time. And with this book, I collaborate with the designer, and I wanted to make like a different piece from like my like a museum presentation.
Yes.
But because the book, I think a book is something different than different medium, of course. Yeah. So when I present my work at the museum, as I said, I wanted to display in between North Korean library and a promotion room of North Korean art. But when I make this book, I wanted to show my work as a reference, like for example, photographic works. I wanted to be these images can be reference for researchers who are interested in this subject, or who are researching on this kind of relations. Yeah, so I invited historians and curators and from different field. Then I wanted to tie these different opinions in my book.
Right. Yeah. So you've got, your book has photographs, of course, but also a number of essays from academics, historians, and curators, as you mentioned. Now, full disclosure to our listeners, I did actually copy edit or proofread those essays for OneJoon, so I was involved in that part of the project, but not in the design process. So tell me how and why you chose these people to write essays for your book, and how those essays contributed to your book.
Yeah, this is documentary project, of course, and I'm an artist, but this project basically related to historical issues, historical and political issues. So without mentioning historical aspects, it's difficult to convey a full story to audiences. So this is basically artist monograph, but at the same time, I wanted to make this book like a not only for art people.
Right.
People
So like serious history.
Yes, exactly.
Like a documentary in a book form.
Yes.
And what did you? I mean, what was the process that you went through to decide who you want to invite to write an essay for your book?
Well, first of all, when I had the show, I already used the Charles K. Armstrong's book as a archive. So I considered Charles K. Armstrong for my like a history and political section, and I invited curator who invited this project before, and Ok Chang-jun. Yeah, he's the researcher, like an expert on international relations, and he he wanted to compare my project with the North Korean novel Far Away from Fatherland.
Right.
Yeah, and in the book, in the novel, North Koreans researchers and the government officials went to Guinea, Equatorial Guinea, and then they taught agriculture
Right.
skill. But the funny thing is, I had the same archive film that exactly same as the novel.
Oh, so you had real footage
Yeah,
which
real.
tells the same story as the novel about North Korean agricultural scientists in Guinea.
Yes, but I didn't know I didn't know I never heard about the novel.
Yeah.
And Oh Chang-jun also didn't know much about the Putiji. So I suggested him to use my Putiji and compare to novel.
Yeah.
And he wrote a very interesting, very well analyzed the North Koreans policy toward Africa.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a very interesting, different mixture of perspectives that you have in the essays. You've got an American academic and a Latvian curator, and of course a South Korean art historian. So it was interesting to get all the different perspectives, the different voices in there.
Yeah. So I hope many people from different field able to read my book.
Where can people buy your book?
I didn't check Amazon. Yeah, sorry,
Okay.
but probably there will be my book on Amazon. Yeah, and the publisher's website as well.
Okay, so the title of the book, once more, that's International Friendship: The Gifts from Africa by Che OneJoon, and it's published by a German publishing company, Kehrer. That's Kehrer.
Thank you.
And you can also find out more on on Che OneJoon's personal website, which we'll put a link on the NK News podcast show notes page, or you can just go to CheOneJoon.com, CheOneJoon.com. After 10 years and publishing this book, do you feel that you're finished with North Korea now?
I wanted to go Angola.
Yeah.
There are many North Korean art. There is a mural and statues and monuments. Yeah, if I have an opportunity, I want to go to Africa again. And I mean, regardless of this book project, I just want to continuously record and document the North Koreans like art in Africa.
Well, that's interesting. It seems like your mission is still not complete, so I wish you good luck with that. And thank you once again, Che OneJoon, for coming on the NK News podcast.
Thank you very much today.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you already have an NK News subscription, take a look at our NK Pro platform, which offers unparalleled services specifically catered to the needs of professionals who monitor developments on the Korean Peninsula. You can inquire about access or a free trial at membership@nknews.org today. Also, if you have any feedback, questions, or guest recommendations, please send them to podcast@nknews.org. Our thanks, as always, to Arius Dare and Brian Betts for facilitating the podcast, and to Gabby Magnuson, our post-recording producer genius. Thanks, and listen again next time.